So your maniac period is when you were shopping.
Yes.
Because you were extra happy. So you overshop during that time. Yeah. Did you become sexually active as well?
Yeah, a couple of times. And the ideas will come that, oh, call this person or hang out with this person. People I don't regularly hang out with, oh, sometimes it's just the company that you want, just being in the company of the opposite sex, just to have fun. Yeah.
Just to have fun?
Yeah, maybe that person makes you laugh, you talk, you chat. Because when I was manic, everybody stayed away from me. It's like nobody wanted to be around me. So why don't I just hang out with people who would be interested in me? And at that time, my dressing changed. I was dressing more provocatively, so I was attracting the wrong kinds of people in my life. So those people were always present. Yes, and sometimes they will propose some kinds of ideas because they think because you have dressed that way, you are in the mood for that, but you may be in the mood, but you don't want to do what they are interested in doing. Yeah.
Whenever they come back to their senses, do they have a sense of regret?
Huge regrets.
Yes, oftentimes
huge regrets.
Most people would recall these things that happened. And based on what happened during these episodes, there usually is. And sometimes you would have, and it happens with as well, you know, sometimes, as I said, irritability and others might come in. So when you're even interacting with your client, the first interview, sometimes, you know, they might be a bit, they might act a bit inappropriately sometimes, you know, because they are overly familiar, because they are very happy, excited. And so some things might also come out in terms of words and others, but later on, some will actually come and apologizing for things that might have happened initially. So yes, there's that sense of, and it's part of the whole thing that you have to deal with, you know, knowing that I experienced this, I did these things that I wouldn't usually do.
Could that sense of regret lead to the depressive state?
It is possible, and especially it depends on what happened during that episode. For some people, you know, it can be quite intense. Sometimes there had been, when we talk about spending, sometimes it's not just small monies, you know.
Yeah,
there was a couple I saw, and a couple, when the gentleman just blew the entire life savings, you know, account, and the wife wasn't amused, and actually let go of some properties as well, with the thought that I'm investing, I know I'm getting some big things done, and these were major things, you know, and it began to affect children's schooling, education. So the ripple effect can be really major, you know, and so it's possible that some of these things can actually tip you into another phase as well. It's possible. But even without that, these other episodes would still occur without treatment.
How much was your debt at that time that your parents had to clear?
I don't remember because there were multiple debts. So there was a time that I got in debt for taking shoes on credits. There were times that I'll buy
I think
clothes.
That's a lot of women have that problem.
And taking loans from people, those kinds of things. I don't remember now because it's a long time ago. And some of them, I don't remember because, like she said, you have regrets, but you have some flashbacks about what you did when you were manic. Some you don't remember. I remember there was this time I was manic. I used the money, but there were no visible things around for me to know what I used the money for. All I could think of was, oh, I gave to this beggar, or I was happy, so I tipped someone heavily. That kind of thing.
We do that a lot. Go to Makola, you come out of Makola, even if you have thousands to be so finished, and you still look at your things and you wonder, what did I buy? Anyway, I want to take a break on this note, and when we come back, we'll talk more about bipolar disorder. Stay with us. Welcome back, and it is the ENL segment. It's actually the final time for us to talk about this. I'm with Dr. Danswa Nuama, who is a resident in the Pantang CSR, and she's a team lead as well. Yes, resident in psychiatry. Yes, Pantang CSR team lead. Ish. You get post too.
It's no be post, no be post.
And also, I'm with Esinam as well. And Esinam is an advocate as well. And she's been battling with bipolar for a while now. They've been telling us a lot about bipolar. But when we were on break, we spoke about something that I wanted the world to hear about. When people talk about depression, they don't know that these are some of the symptoms or signs of depression. Doc, tell us what is to be expected of a depression.
Okay, so with a depressive episode, essentially it's marked by low mood, so feeling really down. Sometimes some people describe it as feeling empty. And then it's also associated with, as I said, people not finding pleasure in things that initially will give them pleasure. So if initially I would read or talk with friends, all of a sudden when I do that, I don't get the energy, the pleasure from it. I don't feel like engaging in those things. So people become a bit more withdrawn compared to how they usually would be. And then there's the changes in the sleep pattern and then the feeding pattern as well. And for some people, it can be, if it's severe, you realize that they might not even be eating for days in some cases. And then also with sleep too, some people find it extremely difficult falling asleep. And for some people, they might actually be overeating as well. Then there's this whole reduced energy. So people have very low energy. And so you realize that they are unable to actually engage in activities that they would normally be engaged in. So for someone who might even be pregnant, you realize that they find it difficult taking care of their babies, doing their normal job. Even when you go to work, the output will be low because they are not able to act out. And sometimes it's misconstrued as them being quite lazy and not wanting to just do what is needed of them. Then we talk about the feeling of hopelessness. When you think of the future, they can't see anything great coming out of it. So you feel like everything is bleak. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's like very hopeless. And sometimes they also feel very worthless. So they believe that they don't amount to much. They don't have much value. And with all of these thoughts, then thoughts of maybe it's a good idea if I'm no longer alive. Maybe if I end it all, it's a good idea. And then sometimes some persons might take steps to actually act on these thoughts as well. With this, unlike the mania where you have a raised libido, this one, it's kind of really drops. So there's the drop in the sex drive as well for both men and women. So these are some of the common things. As I said, it would also be based on the intensity, the frequency.
Kind of they withdraw from the world.
Yes.
They don't want to do anything. They don't want to see people. They just withdraw. But that could affect your work.
Definitely.
Is that what affected your going to lectures?
I guess mine, I was just hiding away from everybody. I wasn't picking phone calls. I wasn't replying to messages. It's like when I wake up in the morning, I just hate the fact that a new day has begun. I wish it to be night throughout. I don't want to have to do the things that I need to. I know I have stuff to do, but I don't feel like doing them. I don't want to do it. Like she said, feeling empty. It's like I don't feel like I'm a human being again. I don't want to just do, like I used to have this imagination that what if I'm no longer, what if this is how I'm supposed to be? I'm not supposed to do things everybody is doing. I think that's what I was called to do. You begin to think you are not, this is how you always be. Yeah, I used to hear voices. This particular voice used to tell me, you will go mad, you will not graduate. That worthlessness. Then I used to also think, okay, it could be true. I'll go mad, I'll not graduate. They were all a bunch of lies. And the hearing voices I later on experienced came as a result of me going off my medication for 2 days. A pastor convinced me that he had prayed for me and I was healed. So I said, okay, let me just see whether I'm really healed. So I didn't take the medication for 2 days. And I started hearing the voices. I actually thought I was hearing from God and God was telling me stuff. So when I went back to take the medication, the voices stopped. That's when I realized that, oh, so this bunch of pills, like these small medications are that powerful. You see, the medications don't cure the illness. They just, it's like they tone it down. They just help you to be able to manage life. So it just suppresses those voices you hear and all that. It doesn't just take the voices away.
And how long do you have to take this medication for?
Okay, so based on the nature of the condition, it's a chronic condition. So it's not like malaria that would say, oh, you've done a 3-day course, you're cured of this particular malaria.
Right.
It's chronic, so it's like hypertension, diabetes, you know, because it's got some hereditary components, it's inherent. So as you said, if someone's hypertensive, we give them blood pressure medication, it brings the blood pressure within the normal range. It doesn't mean that you are no longer hypertensive. It means that if you go off the medications, this blood pressure will shoot up again. You may end up with a
So
stroke,
you
a
have
heart
to take
attack.
it for the rest of your life.
So essentially, you have to be on it long term. Yes. So we kind of prepare people's mind.
So
that
you don't go off even a day or two.
So
Because with what she's saying, 2 days, she started hearing voices. So it means if you should go off even 1 week.
Wow. It will come back and come back harder. That's what we call a relapse. The illness comes back and it's even worse than those episodes you had previously. So I'm very, very careful. Within these 5 years, I'm careful not to go off the medication at all.
Not even 1 day.
No, not even 1 day.
Could the medication be the reason why it comes back harder? What if you haven't even taken the medication at all?
So the thing, as I said, so it has this kind of trend where you end up with these episodes. So generally, it's like you'd have an episode with a period of normalcy, another episode, normalcy. But with time, the frequency increases and the intensity also increases. So and what happens within these episodes can be very, very dangerous. Imagine someone is suicidal, someone might act on it, and that particular episode, they might actually complete that suicide. Or in the manic period, there's a whole inflated self-esteem, I am God, I am Jesus, all of these thoughts keep coming, I'm grandiose, And sometimes someone might act based on these things, might drive recklessly, harm themselves or another person. There was a case of someone who actually thought he was like Superman and was jumping off a building. So there are risks inherent in these episodes, so they are not things to be taken lightly. So that's how come you have to be on medication. So without treatment, the outlook is not good at all. Without treatment, it's a poor outlook. It can really run a very bad course.
Wow.
But with treatment, the outlook then changes altogether. And it's much
That
better.
types to this bipolar. We have to talk about this next week. I want us to have this conversation. It's deeper than we think. Sometimes we take certain things for granted. Like I said, we insult people with the word bipolar. Do we even understand what bipolar is? And how do we, relate to people who have this particular condition?